Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Operations Room, a podcast for COOs. I am Brandon Minsinger. I am joined by Effinier.
It's like the first time you've ever messed up on that one.
Apparently, I've lost it. How is life?
So I listened to a different podcast. I know, heresy, but I listened to a sex and relationships podcast called Savage Love by Dan Savage. Have I ever mentioned him before?
You have. He used to be the columnist for the Vancouver Sun, the newspaper back in Vancouver.
Well, he actually was the columnist for the Seattle Stranger, and then it was syndicated in all kinds of other places. So it must have been in yours. It was in the Albuquerque Alibi, but I discovered originally the Village Voice. And so I've been a Dan Savage fan for years, and now he has a podcast. And I listen nearly weekly, and he always has the same segments, and he always says the same thing. And when you say the same things, I'm like, oh, our listener's going to find this weird or boring or whatever. But they're somehow like quite soothing to hear it the same way every time. And then every so often he'll drop a word. I'm like, oh, he hasn't said it properly, rather than, oh, look, it's different.
Puts our listeners into the groove from the outset.
From the outset, and then also the ending and the wrap. I think people actually like to hear people being me, and therefore I'm extrapolating more than just me, like to hear the same thing multiple times. And also every so often when he doesn't say the exact same words, I go, oh, it isn't pre-recorded, because sometimes it's exactly the same. So anyhow, I'm going on holiday very soon, 9 working days away.
Oh, I didn't know this. Really? Fabulous. Where are you going?
I'm going to Albuquerque. I'm going home. Seeing family, seeing friends, recharging, seeing the sun, seeing some nice sunsets. I miss sunsets so much. I miss sunsets in the sky. It's the desert, and it's also very high, and I just feel like I can breathe. Have you been to Albuquerque?
No, I haven't. Why would I go to Albuquerque?
For a Breaking Bad tour?
Oh, yeah. Do they have a Breaking Bad tour?
They used to. I don't know if they still do, but Albuquerque definitely cashed in on Breaking Bad. It was filmed there, so you can go to all of the places. The city itself is not beautiful. It's like a very spread out southwestern or western city, like all of them. Loads of strip malls, loads of individual houses, have to drive, not a lot of charm, but there are pockets that are quite nice. And there's like a arts community, a lot of creativity. It's a real mixing pot of, I think New Mexico has the highest per capita number of PhDs in America. Well, because we have a lot of national labs, we have a lot of PhDs working on ways to kill people efficiently.
Not anymore with all the layoffs, but yeah, that makes sense.
Well, this is true. But prior to that, it's the home of the nuclear programs for America. Los Alamos, Sandia, national labs. So we have that combined with like a massive rich poor gap, and then some artists thrown in, kind of like East London.
Okay, all right. So the rich and poor divide, a lot of academics, and a sprinkling of creativity artists, artisans.
And then also like weird spirituality. This is like, for me, an epitome of New Mexico. We tend to fly into Denver, and that's what we're doing this time, and then drive to Albuquerque. It's just a lot cheaper, but then we do some skiing on the way back, hang out in Denver a bit, see some friends. And so we were driving down, and just outside of Santa Fe, there's another town called Las Vegas, New Mexico, which is obviously not as famous as its sister, Las Vegas, Nevada. And we ended up eating there in this little Mexican restaurant, all run by 60 and 70-year-old Hispanic women, like proper tias. I went to the bathroom, came out, and there were like beads everywhere. And this woman's trying to pick them all up. And they were beads from her bracelet that somebody from South Africa had given her to bring good luck and fix pains and ailments, because this is New Mexico. So you have like a little bit of South Africa thrown in with some magic beads in a place where everybody's pretty much speaking Spanish while cooking, New Mexican food. It's just a different place. You know how every state in America is its own country, and it's a really relaxed kind of mystic vibe with a lot of natural beauty. So I'm looking forward to going home, recharging spiritually. I might pick up some beads.
I'm going on vacation too, as well, in the summertime, which is not anytime soon. I've actually assigned my wife the task of trying to find us where we should be going. So she is going to come back to me with her recommendations on the Minsinger summertime vacation. So we'll see I'll give you an update when I know.
you don't have any, like a country yet.
So the turkey thing last year worked out well. It was kind of tier 3 pricing for a tier 1 experience, I would say. So it's all-inclusive, family, beach, pools, water slides, all these kind of requirements for the kids club and all that jazz. So I suspect we'll be doing something similar to that.
With young children, I never wanted to do an all-inclusive. I didn't understand the point of it. I was a bit snobby about it. Then I did an all-inclusive with young kids, and it's like, this is amazing. And also you could just properly relax because of the buffet. The kids can look at the food, choose the 3 grapes they're willing to eat, and you just don't have to deal with either trying to cook stuff or the hassle of a restaurant where they just don't want to eat anything. I don't know. That's my children. My children were unbelievably picky, and it was really stressful.
So we've got an amazing topic for today, which is how does AI change the approach to professional development? And we have a wonderful guest for this, which is Anna Tavis. She is the department chair at NYU, where she oversees the HR program and is the co-author of Humans at Work. So before we get to Anna, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. First one is, she defined professional development broadly as an ongoing commitment to our own skills and well-being to maintain career relevancy. Do you like that definition?
I do. I like it better than, well, you know what I feel like about PDPs and frameworks. So, I hate a framework. I hate a PDP. So taking your relevancy into your own hands and like your personal responsibility to figure out how you stay relevant sounds great to me.
And then just briefly, if you can just package this up, why do we collectively hate PDPs, LMSs, training courses as a whole? What's the issue?
So I hate PDPs because they generally are too many things that people are trying to do at once over too long a period and like stupid smart objectives. And you spend all this time writing it and like, what resources do I need? And in theory, it should be good and help you think, but it just ends up becoming tedious, overly complicated. And then you put it in a drawer and never look at it again. So that's why I hate PDPs. LMSs, I rarely take a course ever that I learned something from. And I have almost no respect for any teachers of any courses. I mean, I'm saying this as like, and training courses and stuff. And it's very hard to find somebody who's good. And it's very hard to learn something from that. And then an LMS, you just stick it on a video and it becomes even more pointless and more of a box ticking exercise. I have to say though, I am taking, as you know, one course that has changed my life with an amazing teacher. And that's my writing class. But it's not about like how to write good emails.
So my experience with LMSs in particular is that they get zero usage, zero adoption, or very little. At the end of the day, it has to be applied in some form, whether this is like your writing course or my acting classes that I talked about before, where you're not just getting instruction, you're getting out there to actually do it and getting critiqued on your doing. I think that's where the rubber hits the road in terms of actual usefulness for those types of things. So one thing that Anna had talked about was the future being these personalized AI coaches to mentor you in the flow of work and get those nudges in real time as you're actually doing what you're doing. What do you think of that?
I think it sounds scary. And then also, I'm not sure we all need nudges. I don't think I'd want to use AI as a thing that nudges me in a certain direction. I can see how that's helpful with your sales team if you're looking for some sort of compliance around doing the selling in the right way, but people don't really like to be nudged all the time. You want to do a bit of learning and then have some agency and ability to do it yourself. I think it'll be more helpful when you go to ask help or when you're monitoring a bunch of AIs, they're doing things for you. And then also I watched this video the other day about critical thinking, that when you use AI, your ability to think critically plummets. And that sounds a bit scary. But then I was also thinking, is it scary or is it just that we don't like change? And schools want to teach children the way the Victorians thought children should be taught. And we feel like any diversion from that is bad and inherently awful. But really, times change. Humans' ability to use technology means that how we're hardwired in our bodies is nothing compared to what our brains are capable of. And so is it okay we lose the ability to critically think as long as we have like the ability to have machines critically think for us?
And I suppose there's always a critical thinking that has to happen. You're just critically thinking about other issues than what's being provided to you from ChatGPT or whatever.
Yeah, but I guess like we do need to have an ability to recognize bullshit and hallucinations, and maybe it will just stop. or will become really, really good at it because it matters a lot.
I'm sure, to your point, the orchestration of the AI agents to do useful things will become a skill unto itself, I suspect. She talked about this example of this company called Valence, and Valence is an AI coach. And it's specifically tailored to allowing you as an individual to vent to it. It's something that holds you AI-wise as being accountable and helps you reflect on your performance, your ways of working. It assists you in role-playing scenarios and assists you in working with others or managing others in this case. And this whole kind of AI coach space, what do you make of that? Because on the one side of it, I can see this having massive value in the sense that traditional coaching, business coaches like Matthew Stone, very good, but very expensive and not scalable across the organization. So if you really want to have an AI coach there for every single person in the company that legitimately, to your point, when you need help and you want help, you're using it to get help. What do you make of that?
I think I'm just old. I'm old and a Luddite. There's a part of me that's like, yeah, I can see the value of that. And then there's a part of like, but where's the human connection? And how much of coaching or how much of the value of coaching is the insights that you get, and how much of the value of coaching is the connection you make with another human who then like helps you have real insights. And there's like AI therapists, kind of going back to the Dan Savage chat in the beginning, they're AI girlfriends that lonely men can have, or lonely people, but I think it tends to be men. And it's like, it's amazing that people can bond with machines, knowing that they're machines, but are so desperate for connection that they're able to form a bond with them and like just kind of have the plausible deniability. And so for how should I write this email or help me practice what I should say for a difficult conversation really quickly, there's a benefit to it. But if nobody talks to humans and all of our time is spent with machines, I think we're just going to have a lot more incels, and we're going to have a lot more radicalized men in their mothers' basements. And already young people aren't having sex anymore. And I know that we're not talking about sex, but clearly it's on my mind today, like somehow all of this technology stuff. And so, yes, use it tactically, but still also talk to other humans who are actual people and not machines.
You know, as Charlie Cowan had talked about, if you're line managing somebody and all their PDP information, their performance reviews, your one-to-ones, whatever that you have around the individual, they're all sitting there as a project, and you're basically using that as a tool to help yourself think through how best to help that person in terms of management of that individual for career development or whatever purposes that you have. That seems like a very useful tactical thing to have by your side as a bit of a co-pilot to help you do those one-to-ones better. And also being able to do that in a way where you're not having to spend hundreds of pounds on coaches, but you have a tool by which you can help yourself be better as a line manager.
Yes, but I think you should still make sure you talk to people and not just talk, like make connections with people.
So why don't we wrap up and move on to our conversation with Anna Tavis.
You know, professional development itself is changing as we speak, because professional development used to be about climbing the corporate ladder from the mailroom to, executive suite. And now professional development is a kind of a hygiene necessity for pretty much any professional because of the changing environment, changing technologies, changing roles, and instability basically in the job market. A lot of volatility there. So professional development is an ongoing commitment that every professional should make to their own skills, to their own even well-being and mental health, to how to manage this level of change all around us. So professional development is a must do for anyone who is in the workplace. Professional development, if you want to make it short and easy to understand, is your portfolio of skills that are marketable and have a real application in the workplace. It is about your social network, professional network that needs to be constantly updated as people move around, etc. And it is really your ability to, take in and understand and analyze the context of the work situation, work environment you're in. So it's kind of from basic skills, what do I do, to who do I know, and what it all means. Those three components are in your portfolio of professional development.
So it's not about having to take a bunch of courses, because whenever I think about professional development, that's what I think about.
Not at all. In fact, we are moving far away from traditional credentialing and the courses. Courses is just absolutely one of the ways in which you could enhance your skills, build your network, understand the market situation. But there are so many other ways in which that professional development could be achieved by individuals today because of new technologies, that it's just a small sliver of what you need to understand about taking care of your professional life.
My feeling around professional development, or instantly I think about learning management systems or LMSs and how useless they've been in organizations for the most part in scale-ups. So can you maybe just quickly comment on the LMS thing? And then I guess maybe more interesting for the audience, I think, is where you're coming from, Anna, just in terms of your thesis on AI and its impact on professional development and what that looks like going forward.
So I think the LMS is the kind of early 21st century way of organizing information. And it's still about an individual passively sitting in front of whatever needs to be delivered, the information, where the learner, it's not a learner-centric, it's a learner-focused environment, but a little bit more targeted. However, the learner is still a kind of a passive actor in that LMS situation. Where we are at right now with the technologies available to us, and I write and speak about it, it's a personalized AI coaching, training, mentoring that is built in the flow of work. So you work, you do something, you get feedback, you get just-in-time data. If there is a gap in your understanding of how to do certain things, there's an immediate feedback, etc. So it's very personalized. You are not stopping to do this professional development on the side. You are actually continuing to do your work, your tasks, and learning happens right there. So we have that capability right now with AI, and I think that that's really the future of learning overall, not just professional development, because those tools are beginning to be introduced in schools, at the universities. We're still far from the scaled implementation of those tools, but the experiments are underway. Case studies are already beginning to get published, and really learning fast about creating immersive learning environments. And as I mentioned, in the flow of work rather than away from work.
I guess when you were first answering the question of personal development or professional development, I was thinking about it as me developing myself, but actually your answer is also about training staff or developing your teams. And so as a COO who's looking at how to be much more effective for my team training and development, what would you recommend?
To use these personalized learning tools, the coaches and even ChatGPT could be trained to be specifically focused on supporting, let's say, your team in accomplishing certain goals. As a manager, what these tools allow you to do is to definitely have frequent interactions with your team. However, the team members are already in between those sessions, in between those interactions with the manager, have the opportunity to get that tutoring and feedback on their own, because the data on their performance delivered just in time. If you take the performance management process as it was traditionally done in companies, it was done at the end of the year, usually, where the manager got together with their teams and kind of had the conversation. There was a recency bias. There were all sorts of gaps in the data collection, etc. Now we can fast forward to AI and find that those interactions could be happening on a daily basis. There are systems that are set up, and you can help train those systems as needed for your specific workplace that will provide nudges to your team. So you as a manager do not, the traditional name for, or historical name for a manager was a supervisor, right? So the supervisor is no longer looking over your shoulder because you are getting from the systems objective multimodal communication around how you are performing. And the manager can make adjustments, have a different level conversation around strategy, how to best apply your skills, etc. But the very basic, feedback that needs to happen for people to develop their skills happens pretty much automatically in those organizations, especially now as we see companies coming in like these AI coaching companies. Some of them, I work with them. They're actually trained on the company's specific business, on the company's specific policies, other types of information that are behind the firewall that LLMs are developed for the purposes of that particular organization and that particular business. So there's a lot of targeting that happens. And then the role of manager becomes more of a mentor and facilitator rather than a supervisor in the traditional sense.
And also, we're really always for lots of practical advice on this podcast. And you're working with some of these providers. Do you recommend any? Like, who should COOs look at?
Yeah, I mean, I will just name a few. In fact, at NYU in New York, I hold the Coaching and Technology Summit, which is a conference where we bring these companies that specialize in coaching, educational, AI support, etc. So the top of line companies range from the platforms that connect coaches, and that was the first step, coaches with the employees, but now they're all moving to purely AI. And my top of mind is Valence, is a company that pure AI, they bring into companies, and big companies, diversified companies like Delta Airlines, Coca-Cola, Nestle, and others are already bringing these tools in to make them available to the employees at all levels. The beauty of these tools, obviously, is that they're cost effective. They're specialized in the, again, policies and specifics of that particular company and that particular business. They have the capability of looking at data across multiple disciplines and multiple departments and bring those data to individuals in a very targeted way. They're available 24/7. They're in multiple languages, etc. And my favorite case study is what, for example, Delta Airlines has done, where it was a very serious sort of operational issue. If you recall, there was a moment, a time when there was a computer CrowdStrike to their system, and then all of the systems went down, basically grounding the airline for a whole number of hours. And so that was the trigger for the company to think, what if we had AI level support for these particular, and sort of instead of sending emails and communicating with a distributed network of people working at different airports, et cetera, in different locations, you can imagine that everyone on their handheld devices have access to these coaches that could be just in time trained on what the company recommends, what kind of recommendations centrally, and provide the coaching support to people on the ground at different gates, at different time zones, et cetera. So I think that that's kind of the vision of, how these particular tools are going to be used. So they're not just for professional development, but also for problem solving. But also after the fact, they could be a great tool for self-reflection, thinking about what kinds of skills were required for us to, really get this right. So I think Delta is now embracing these tools and is beginning to fine tune them, but really allowing all of the employees at all levels access to the AI coaching tools.
It kind of seems like we're now seeing really a blending of everything now together, which is, it is all about high performance. And under the banner of high performance, we have all sorts of things. We have kind of classic training of skills, soft skills in terms of how to work with others and collaborate. You've got the mental health pot of what that looks like. How does that all play out, I guess, just in terms of all the different pots that we're talking about? Because if we go back to the start of this podcast, we talked about LMSs, and LMSs did one specific thing. mental health, as it's classically been geared for scale ups, does one specific thing. So this kind of blending together is really now what we're talking about, all under that high performance banner. At least that's how I imagine it in my head. So I'm just wondering, where does that end, and where does a generic tool like ChatGPT pick up then, to be honest, because it's hard to see the dividing line anymore between a generalist tool as opposed to a specific tool based on company information.
You're absolutely right. I personally think that the future of performance is going to be in this ability to integrate so many different inputs and data on the humans, and the humans are going to be working in hybrid teams. And the next generation hybrid is not whether you work from home or in the office. It's going to be how many bots you have on your team and what kind of their functions are going to be. So I think these are all very different skill sets that will need to be acquired going forward. But the one thing that I see as the next step right now, there are these specialties that where the companies are, as I mentioned, like Valence with their lead with AI developmental LLM called Nadia is the name of the coach. But the integration of like well-being data, almost like what I compare it to professional athletes. When we look at professional athletes and look at their performance, we do not separate out the state of their health from how they perform, which we still do for humans in the workplace, right? We kind of, up until recently, probably COVID was a great accelerator for us to start looking into the well-being part of performance as an integral part of effective and productive employee and their overall output. So I think we're going to see this tremendous degree of integration in the workplace, and everyone is going to be managing multiple agents, between agents, digital twins. This is still out there, but they're already existing and beginning to show up in some experimental case studies where you play different scenarios. It's very immersive. We talked about for skills development, we've looked at metaverse, for example. We kind of put it on the back burner for a while, but it's going to come back pretty soon where you're going to be practicing skills in these simulated environments, which basically ensure a much more accelerated learning curve than from what we've seen before, sitting in class and taking notes, et cetera, et cetera. And the challenge for us right now is to better understand how humans need to do that and train people on taking advantage of all of these support systems that are becoming available. And my recommendation is to start with just some basic LLMs that people have on their phones right now, like ChatGPT, and train them and create your own chat that will be like your dedicated coach, so that they have the memory and information about your preferences, et cetera, et cetera. And it will become even more important as people move from job to job, because right now a lot of these case studies are within companies for the company to achieve their goals, et cetera. They're, as I said, trained on the policies, trained on their specific market segment, et cetera. But for individuals to be able to have that market relevance across different segments in the industries, it will be important to start with the coach early on. And there are some incredibly persuasive examples of where, starting from high school, these AI coaches, career coaches are beginning to get introduced. And then if all of that information is preserved as you move around and you own it, that will help you get coached, trained, et cetera, and find appropriate employment. So that's kind of the promise out there. There right now, as I said, where I see most uptick is in the integration of AI coaching and learning and development, skills development, and professional development in companies, with various types of experimentation continuing with other types of technologies. But all of it is focused on accelerating skills development, finding better opportunities and better fit, to be honest, for what you have to offer and what the organizations you might be joining are looking for, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. This future that you paint is half terrifying and half exciting, depending on whether you're going for the Pink Floyd, another brick in the wall moment, or more of the freeing that we're all going to have these machines doing everything. I'm going to choose that the freeing, we're not all just bricks in the wall controlling machines, but actually like it means that we have the ability to do more than we ever thought possible before. My sense working in startups is there's never enough hours in the day. There are never enough people. The dreams and visions that you have are always 18 months away. Do you think when we get really good at using machines, we'll actually achieve what we want to achieve within the right number of hours and be able to relax?
I think that that's something that we should definitely aspire for. However, the biggest unknown to me is not technology, but the humans. Because all of these tools are showing up so fast, and we evolutionary as, mammals are not able to adjust and change we know our brains are Paleolithic, we go back millennia. So I think that's the biggest unknown. And this is where the concerns are. And this is the necessity of really a very responsible individuals who are in charge of sort of these types of innovations. And what I can say is with the introduction of these tools in companies, the companies are watching it, experimenting and watching. I'm involved in a couple of research projects right now as we're kind of studying the human reaction to these tools at scale in organizations. Like with one leading insurance company, we are looking at management behavior and how fast the managers can adjust, how they're using these tools, what are the kind of the best practice use cases, and whether, we're able to accelerate that productivity and efficiency, everything that we're looking for. But there is still a lot of questions around, how the humans are going to respond. And the changes will need to happen all the way to schools, high schools and before, of how we learn and what we learn. And it's already beginning to happen, but obviously not fast enough. And it's most importantly, not evenly distributed. You have schools that are embracing it, pushing it, and I'm talking from an educational perspective, and companies as well. And obviously those who do not have the resources, the understanding, the staff, et cetera. And I think that will create a lot of additional inequity in the market.
Anna, it's been amazing speaking with you today. Unfortunately, we're rapidly running out of time. You have to answer the one question we ask every single one of our guests, which is, out of everything that we covered today and not, if our listeners can only take one thing away, what would it be?
I would say just do it. Try it, experiment on yourself, be out there and trust that this is going to work out better for you if you are ahead of the curve on internalizing those tools, learning how to use them to your advantage, et cetera. And then what delights me about these technologies that they're a lot easier to learn or to get used to in your day-to-day work than anything that we've seen before.
On that note, thank you, Anna, for joining us on the Operations Room. If you like what you hear, please leave us a comment or subscribe, and we will see you next week.